Hello. So, to be honest, there are days when I feel kind of fresh and focused and really willing to go on and get another battle through. So, I was contemplating what should I actually try and focus on, and if I do make a video today, what to speak about. Mm, and I guess one of the best things to actually kind of not begin but continue with is like, how did I end up where I am? So living on about no fixed income, stuff like that. So main reason is the fact I've got loads of sun shining here and bouncing back from a couple of metal pieces, so I'm sorry for a very different expression on my face or whatever's going on. So I had a great career, really well paid. So even when it wasn't going so well, it was still enough to live comfortably in the meantime. Specifically starting from 2017 onwards, it was the best in terms of financial stuff. It was the best time of my life. So, but even before, of course, so 2011, I left Slovenia, got a first really well-paid job in UK. Things moved on, so forth. But yeah, it was my life was not very constantly stable, that's for sure. But I wouldn't really beat myself down for it. So going a little bit now back to more this time. So let's say I'm gonna try and focus on the past 4 years or so, less than 4 years. So in 2019, I was working for a big company here in Netherlands. And it was really actually an easy job, to be honest. I was in charge of kind of leading a very small team, and basically sending requests to other teams what needs to be fixed. There were some network and IT security related issues on a large firewall that was combining three companies together. So that had to be patched up and fixed because there were fundamental mistakes in the configuration of that firewall. So that was my last job. It was really well paid. I think I was earning roughly about 4.5 to 5,000 euros per month after tax, which for the Dutch standards is really good. So then people would go, okay, what happened? Yeah, what happened? Other than I was working in the media industry for a total together of about 20, almost 25, 24 years. Well, no, media industry in itself about 20, 21 years total. And half of that time and career, probably more than half, I was actually questioning myself, as in, what am I doing here? I'm working for the kind of industry that's really not honest with people, doesn't serve many apparent good purposes that I could put my finger on. Not to mention that during the 2020 we've seen even worse. Yeah, so there was propaganda before, but this was much worse. So obviously, just before 2020, I reached a point where I just really couldn't do it anymore. So I didn't really want to quit fully, completely yet. I was already kind of meeting with a group of people at that point. That was from around end of August till the beginning of the year 2020 altogether. Few Dutch people, one African guy, and a couple of African origin, but here from the Netherlands. So we were meeting once or twice, once a week, maybe sometimes twice, planning some business together, really great ideas. I was essentially also planning to go on my own anyway, so it was going to be my business or business together with people, doesn't really matter as long as we can align together on the same values. So, to keep this short, end of 2019, I felt like tired and I've had enough. Plus the fact that, we had two small children, there was a lot of responsibility and, I would say, challenges at home, where I felt like I want to focus more of my time on the family, the children, and also the relationship, which even at that point it was clearly not doing well enough. So these were the main reasons why I wanted to reduce my time that I spent working at that job or those kind of jobs. So I was starting to try and negotiate with that company and a few others, that because during the time I was working for the past few years, I was actually headhunted quite a lot for my position. So I had an opportunity to talk to a few different companies and try to negotiate to work for a part-time position. So at some point I was actually even offered to work for roughly 1,000 euros per day, as long as it would be a full-time. I was really tempted to still pull it for another year, because that kind of money, that would put me in a position where I can invest into anything and not, if it goes away, it goes away. If it works, it works. So, yeah. Nobody wanted to accept my terms. At the end of the day, this group of the Dutch people were offering me some kind of like a minimum level of guaranteed. So it was about 2,500 euros. So it was about 3,000 US dollars of permanent, of fixed pay. To just join the group and lead them as a chief technical officer, basically. So that was kind of like the safety net that I had thought that I had in my mind. So I went with it. So December 2019, I decided to quit, to resign from my job, and also then turn down the other offers, like I said. And from January to February, it slowly became apparent that that group of people, some of them were really serious, but I would say that their general expertise, competence level was definitely not where they tried to claim it to be. That was one that started to become very apparent. And that there was this one guy who was more or less self-proclaimed leader of the group, turned out to be the kind of guy who you would say, unfortunately, very typically Nigerian scammer. So he was asking the other participants of this group or other partners of this business to get the money so he could actually pay me out, while he was claiming that he has a massive wealth behind him. So clearly the whole thing soon fell apart. I think it was about the beginning of February. Also at that point there were a lot of alarming news from China about the new infections and stuff. Then at that point, end of February, or sometime around end of February, also my grandma, who I really was probably one of the people in my whole family and relatives that I felt most devastated for when she died. Still don't know really why, but I just loved her a lot, I guess. She was sometimes strict and very direct about what she thinks, But also once we reconnected with her, it was really, you know, something special, and I still miss her a lot, basically. So yeah, I traveled to Slovenia, and even that was already the point where things were not going so well. So I was trying to keep some of the money that would still come from the work and stuff to pay off the rent, which was really high. Realized that I'm gonna have to start looking for work, but at that point, once I came back from Slovenia, Bergamo was already in lockdown, and then the rest of the countries really followed. And you can imagine that trying to get any kind of work at that point was close to impossible. So it took a lot of effort to go through a lot of things, basically. First, it was the legal battle with the landlord. It's a woman that was where we rented the house for almost 3 years. Paid a lot of money, always ahead of time. Within a week, when I couldn't really pay anymore, she would have sent her lawyer, right? And that was a very good lawyer that managed to, I mean, just like, if I could go and defend myself in the court, I would definitely not land so badly as my own public defendant managed to do so. So people would think that I'm now, again, victimizing myself. Definitely not. I was looking for work. I was trying to do other stuff. I mean, I did anything humanly possible, but at that point, I was also becoming exhausted more and more from everything. Mainly, I would say just the actual sheer mental pressure that I had, honestly, at home. Now, women or my ex partner might be very upset to hear this, but I did have like sort of a long professional burnout. But when it came to an emotional burnout and exhaustion, I've came to realize that large majority came from home. And I'm not even going to like into a point of like blaming anyone for what happened, but I'm just trying to describe how I actually just felt throughout the whole situation. You know, we all make mistakes, nobody's perfect. But when you're consistently trying to avoid all sorts of conflicts, so it's kind of fight and flight mode and a survival mode for a lot of time, and then you're also too ashamed to speak to anyone about it. You don't understand how you've allowed yourself to get so far, so deep. I mean, you do. You see all the causes and effects, and step by step how you drifted that far. Um, but as a man, it was just hard for me to admit that I really failed myself. With that, failed my partner, myself, all of that stuff. And I don't mean like failing as in, oh, I quit the job, I didn't do anything after or stuff. That's not the point, because I did. I had another job, it just wasn't for me. I tried more than a few things with hands-on, like e-bikes and stuff. Unfortunately, we did not go down well with the partners there and stuff. So, like, and people would think it's all about me. No, there's always a two-way street in everything that happens. It's just after the 2020, there was just so much crazy stuff going on in terms of course, the year itself, lockdowns. Emotionally, it was very like crazy, to say so. Like, externally, internally, in a private life and a non-private one. It was difficult to communicate with people. It was just very, it was, I know that the times were extremely challenging for everyone. Um, and then, yeah, on top of that, at that point, so my grandma died. We were all sick, probably from the first wave of the so-called virus. And then after that, we realized, that my partner was pregnant again. So I must say that with all my children, literally all at that point, 3 of them, if I had a thought, a feeling, and a vision that I want a child, it happened that quick. So we had a really long discussion about it. It was difficult. She made one of the most difficult choices a woman can do in life. But we both understood that with this kind of unpredictable situation, so I'm out of job, we're in the middle of this pandemic situation, it was very difficult to think that we could support another child. So as you can imagine, we decided not to do so. I don't know, I still don't feel good about it, and I never will, to be honest. But regardless of the fact that we used condoms later on, 6 months later, again she announces that she's pregnant. And of course at that time we all decided, so us and our later on couple therapist decided that this was probably some kind of a soul that really wanted to come here. And it turns out it was probably quite necessary, because my fourth child, Maluz her name, she's now 2 years old. She's one of the sweetest beings I've ever met in my life, apart from my firstborn. I mean, yeah, she brought a lot of peace to our house, and to even a lot of balance to the other 2 kids and their dynamic. So it's great to have her, really. But definitely came out as a huge surprise. And yeah, like, I don't need to do a DNA test to know that she's mine also. As crazy as it sounds, with using condoms and then suddenly you still conceive a child, but I'm not surprised with my conditions, in terms of the fact that I did not put any effort into conceiving kids. So yeah, I've tried a lot of things. I tried to work as hard as I could. But having survived most of my life in the survival mode, and even when times were good, there was still a lot going on, like a lot of instability, in a sense of, I lived like a freelancer. You can have a well-paid project for 6 months, and then that finishes, and for 3 months you've got nothing to do, nowhere to go, because it's in the middle of the summer. So you're just, applying for the jobs, that will come and land in about September, October, and then you're good for another 6 months, maybe 9, maybe a year, depends. It really depends. Sometimes projects would be listed to go on for 12 months, but they would just basically end in 6 months, because the corporations would change their mind about what they want to do, or how many people they want to have assigned to the projects and stuff like that. So it's always about the money and the numbers, right? So yeah, my mistakes that I made in the past, I would say, especially when I was making a lot of money, were that I did not really think it through well, in terms of invest the money, protect some, make some, create some assets, create some of the cash flow, create something that is gonna work for itself without me having to put my time for that. So, you know, when you have the money, you should really use an opportunity to make that money work for you. And it's really true, because never mind that among the richest of the people, there's a lot of corruption, there's a lot of exploitation of the weakest and the lowest paid, and so on. I've met a lot of wealthy people who are also just really genuinely good. They do good things, they pay people well, they have well respected businesses, companies, and stuff. So I must say, you know, it's it's not about the money corrupting people, it's about people who are already corrupted, and then they get into a position of power which is way more important than the money itself. That's when you see their true face. Yeah, that's why personally I had this resistance to many things that came around the money. So that's stocks at the very beginning, the crypto and stuff. Like everything was related to one way or another to very dirty money, you know. Like, so these were the main reasons why I never took care of myself in that sense, and with that provided some level of stability for myself and my family and all these kind of things. Now I know the mistakes have been made, lessons have been learned. Clearly I won't invest in companies like, I don't know, Pfizer or Microsoft or stuff like that, because I just do not align together with their values and what they do in life and how they approach everything. But yeah, there's a lot of other things that, you know, people can invest in or work together with and stuff. So, you know, also the kind of jobs that I want to pick and I look for, if in terms of, you know, everybody also at my, let's say in my situation, of course you would go for a job. People would say go for anything, yes, of course, no problem, but you know, you have to accept the fact that I've had quite a few physical injuries in my life. It's not easy to live with all of that, so it's not easy to also work physically hard for too long. And I did work hard in my life. I worked physically hard, I worked with my hands. I'm extremely talented in so many ways, and if not talented, I've also learned so many things. You know, I know how to restore wood, stone, some metal stuff. I know how to do decent paint jobs. I mean, of course, anybody can learn those things, but it's a difference between learning them and actually then doing them and being diligent enough that you do them well. Not to mention all the stuff I know about IT and then the digital security, networks, broadcast systems, broadcast media, all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, technically finding a job for me and making money should be easy. I agree. But things have changed so much in a sense that the systems architects and designers and systems administrators and I don't know, people who are generally more technical leads, as far as I can see on the market, are right now really not required as much, because either these jobs are fulfilled or they are being replaced with a lot of software as a service companies, which are now predominantly using automation and artificial intelligence or machine learning tools to deliver those jobs. So unfortunately, most of my skills are being replaced one way or another. That doesn't mean that I'm like just sitting here doing nothing and crying about it. Yeah, learning is actually something I like a lot, do a lot. So it's all about, I don't know, I could not describe. Let's say maybe I've sent over 200 applications already. I'm also signing up to more than a few webinars in terms of, let's say, you could have a webinar from Grant Cardone, how to do your business, or you could have another webinar about some self-help, for example. Never mind. It's just like I'm basically daily doing quite a bit on in terms of like doing something to improve my life right now, step by step. So having said that, though, one thing I understood after having quit my freelancing career and I had good money and all that stuff, when really rich people and wealthy people say money doesn't buy happiness, they're really right. Because the fact that I was working for such industry with no like deeper meaning and connection with the human spirit and life and nature and all that stuff, I ended up feeling dead inside. So the first feeling that I had when I quit was like, yeah, ending quite a toxic relationship and abusive relationship. It was kind of like that. I felt free, liberated, and finally more open to what else I could do and other opportunities and exploit most or all the talents that I have and just grow as a human being as I go. So all of those things. But unfortunately, yeah, as it was back so far in the life, I ended up surrounded with a lot of people who just were not who they claimed to be. And regardless of the fact that I have a really good intuition, it was more down to the fact that I just wasn't really diligently following that inner voice and intuition and saying like, come on guys, like, if you have so much to talk about, show me, prove it. And I always fell for those kind of like hooking excuses. So in the same way, I would say I've allowed myself to get reduced to a much less than I really am in the relationship and consequently in my life as well. So, I felt worthless and I ended up being seen as a loser and a worthless figure by those who have actually met me before and saw me, and they realized, holy shit, this dude is really smart. He's very capable, he's worked hard, he can pretty much touch anything, and he's very good at it. And to a certain extent, people would say, like, he can be pretty like sharp and sometimes maybe intense, but that's pretty much because you don't want to screw around with him. Like, the guy's really been through a lot, he's seen a lot, he's very experienced, he's really wise and intelligent. So don't push the triggers and the buttons, because you'll get only 1 or 2 chances in life and then you're done. True. I used to be like that, but then unfortunately some, or quite most of us men, can be really stupid when it comes to falling in love really deeply. And because of that, I stopped believing in myself. And when I stopped believing in myself, it was pretty natural that whatever else I was gonna try after that safe and secure job, which I was already one of the best people at, and it wasn't so hard to get, flushing down my career and starting from scratch, and being also publicly a lot more open and honest about who I really am. So, I would say since the year 2000 or then 2001 to up to about just a couple of years later, when I was struck by some massive events that pushed me towards different kind of self-awareness and exploring different fields of human existence and reality and everything itself, and started to question everything. I put myself kind of back to a state of a sheep and an average person when I was 26, when my first son was born, and I just wanted to be, like a responsible parent and responsible person. So I caught myself into that rat race trap and started to fail, even though during this failed and not really necessary career, I actually happened to be very successful in terms of how much money I made, and I traveled around the world. My dreams came true beyond my expectations and imagination and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I had a great life, but I wasn't happy with myself. And then, because of not being happy with myself, I kept allowing that things that shouldn't have happened to me in a relationship or at work did continue to happen. So I was just going on with everything. And as much as I must say, man can take anything and can live with anything, only for so long. So that's not really a smart idea. And yeah, in the end, burnout was definitely the major thing that happened. Loss of self-respect. And then with all that, you end up being like quite unmotivated a lot of the time, and not really willing to put up with many things anymore. So that's the exhaustion of just being in a survival mode for so long. And then the past 7 months in particular, I would probably be able to describe as the most challenging spiritually, and in a weird way, like it's almost like a matrix in terms of how everything was going on. Just unbelievable, really. I knew a long time ago that I needed a break. I needed some kind of vacation for myself and alone to actually find myself again. Unfortunately, as everything else, I pushed that aside because, I don't know, family needed me more, kids needed me more. I wanted to be there, and then because of that need to take care of myself, I also kept trying to find my space way too often in, playing pool, having a beer with friends and stuff, but it was just basically being stuck in the same pattern and doing the same thing over and over again. And that's why I ended up where I am now. And yeah, it's this situation at the moment, it's where it's most difficult to pick yourself up and start changing the patterns and the habits one by one. And clearly the first things that have to change are the perspective on life, on yourself. Realizing that living through perception is definitely not a healthy way to live with yourself. So yeah, there you go. In a very long, complex way, reasons why I left a well-paid career, security, stability, and with that gave an impression that I'm failing myself, my family, my wife, my kids, and ultimately did not end up feeling really good with myself and with others around me, even those that tried to be there for me and be good to me. So I was a very different and difficult person in those times. And what I must say, that's not just work, but never allow yourself to get humiliated by anyone to a point where you would be too ashamed to talk about it to anyone. And where you would feel like I did at some point, even after having children, where I felt really bad about myself, thinking, feeling like, what have I done, and how and if to get out of this at all. Because that's what ultimately made me made me make so many wrong choices and become so out of balance and out of focus with myself, constantly chasing something and just finding the wrong things all the time. It was simply because the whole time I was doing one wrong thing, accepting and tolerating things that I should have never accepted and tolerated to begin with. And to that, I must say it's a huge chunk of peace to know how accountable you are yourself with everything, and how much it took all your life, all your investments and efforts down the drain with it. So it's very important to keep an eye and your guard up, in a sense, at all times. Even when you relax, it's still okay to be attentive and alert to what's going on inside you and around you. And don't ignore any of that. So that's probably like a personal and a professional lesson, what you should do and shouldn't do for yourself, at least from my point of view. I'm sorry that I can't be otherwise than long, because it's just beginning with these videos and stuff is very difficult and took a long time. And just to go back through the whole story of mine, it will take several chapters, which are gonna be still long, each and every one of them. So you've got a pause button, I hope. You have the subscribe button. I hope you do want to subscribe to this channel, because in the future it might get interesting, it might not. You can always just forget about it. If you did like this video and others, please, press that like button, because it will help me grow some more audience. It will help this channel to grow. Eventually, I want to help people who can resonate with what I'm sharing here, what I'm saying, because I have a wealth of experience in how to actually really improve yourself, because that's what it needs to begin with. And clearly I'm gonna share my story from this new beginning and from scratch to whatever failures and other successes I will come across in life. So yeah, I hope you stick around. I hope you share this. I hope you like it. And I hope that you will enjoy my next videos as well. Please do leave a comment. Tell me what's good about it, what's not good about it. I would like to appreciate some feedback, so I can also improve on these things alone. Except for the productional value, at the moment there is not much I can do in terms of trying to add any thumbnails and marketing stuff, because I don't even feel like it. I am who I am. It's just being me and very honest about it. And that's the whole purpose of this channel. When it comes to other stuff, we will see. I wish you all a good day and peace.